And today we're going to be talking about processing and optimizing your photographs, and we'll be mostly talking about Luminar 4. There are a lot of good programs out there to optimize your photographs. I used the Nick collection for years and years. There's Topaz is great. On One Photo is great. In fact, they just sent me a new version of it today. So these are all good. But today we're going to be talking about Luminar 4. And let me see. We're talking about optimizing your photograph, getting the max out of it, elevating your photography, you might say. And with Luminar 4, it takes the complexity out of the photo editing. There are powerful photographic tools that are simple and quick. You can do the same thing in Lightroom and Photoshop, but it takes considerable manipulations and time. With Luminar 4, you'll find that things go a lot quicker. It's a standalone program or a plugin for Lightroom and Photoshop, and we'll see that. Now we're in the AI age, the artificial intelligence age, and it's sort of like a buzzword, and it's been around for a long while. In fact, if you go and in Lightroom, in the develop module, you'll see there is an auto button, and that's artificial intelligence. You hit the auto and the computer's going to give you, a version of your photograph that it thinks, looks the best. With good AI, they do a lot of machine learning. They train the software. It's fed a lot of information of before and after photos. The program develops image awareness. It becomes aware of different features of the image. It learns how to use masking, so you can do selective adjustments. And these selective adjustments can go on without you doing any manual selection. They're very powerful and unique tools. And like I said, it makes difficult tasks a lot easier. It's a quicker way to enhance your photos. Here are some of the artificial intelligence tools in Luminar 4. There's AI accent. We'll see what that's like. AI structure. There's a skin enhancer, a very, very good portrait enhancer. There's a sky enhancer. There's actually a sky replacement tool. And there's things to augment the sky, and the smart contrast, which is also great. Just about the time that Vince and I decided on a date to do this presentation, a couple of days later, Luminar sent me something and said they're going to have a new version of Luminar, and they're calling it Luminar AI. Why? Because they're doing a lot more artificial intelligence. And since then, I have seen a couple of the you might say reviews of the beta version of AI, and it is interesting. There's a lot more of AI photo editing. It really is awesome, and it's much faster. But Luminar 4 is going to be around. They will continue to support it for at least a year. They're going to do performance and compatibility updates. It will continue to work indefinitely as long as you have an operating system on your computer that will run it. In fact, Luminar 2018 still works on my computer. But let's get to looking at some Luminar 4. Here we have the interface, just to give you some idea of how things work. On the very top bar up here, you'll have the typical, you might say, a Mac version of the program that, of file, the edits, view window, and that's in every program. But up here, we start looking at some of the tools for Luminar. Here it says cancel and apply. That means you're going to cancel what you're looking at or the work that you've done. Or here, click apply, you're going to apply it to the image. And next to it is looks. Looks are like the presets. And when you click on the button, these presets down here will appear. These looks will appear. So you can look at it and see if there's any you like. Then right here is, the size of the image, where you can increase the size, decrease the size, or, well, we'll look at this later. And then right here is the eyeball, that's before and after. And here's a split screen view. We'll look at that too. Here's the crop tool. Then over here on the right is where we have all the tools over here. Let me move on a little bit. This is just a larger version of what we just looked at. We'll see this thing again. Down here is the looks on the bottom. I made it much larger so you can see it. And here you can see that there's a drop-down menu, and here you have different catalogs of looks. We'll see what that looks like. This happens to be the landscape, and here you can see all the, the different presets. And let's move on. And over on the right is where you're going to see the tools. And up on the top, the very top, there's the library. We're not going to be talking about the library. I don't use their library, but it is a standalone, and you could download your images from your camera or your cards into their library. I do that into Lightroom. And then you go next, there's the thing that's highlighted here is edit, and you can see the edit tools are lit here, and down here is information. Before I go on any further, let me just mention there are two great guides on Luminar 4. One is called the A Photographer's Guide. The other one is the Photographer's Guide. They are both great guides. And if you want to find out more information, just look at some of the YouTube videos that are available. Go on Google and type in YouTube Luminar 4, and this is what's going to appear. You have, well, you can see how many videos there are here. And if you want to go get further information, you can go and go on Google and Google the Skylum, and Skylum will show you their homepage where you can look at Luminar and Aurora. You can look at the Academy, and you look at the Academy, there's things, videos on how to get started, tutorials, classes, podcasts, user guides. So there's a lot of information out there that's available. That'll help you greatly. So let's move on. And now I'm going to have to get my screen back now. All right, here we are. Let me just get rid of this. And I did say that Luminar is a freestanding program. Down here, you can see here's Luminar 4. And I have some video, I mean, it's not some videos, but some photographs over here. I'm going to take this photograph. I'm just going to drag it and drop it on the icon here. Drop it on the icon on Luminar 4, and it should start. What's going on? Well, this thing was working perfectly before. There it is. It's just taking a little time. There it is. So it opened up, and here's that photograph. You might say, well, that's a nice photograph. Yeah, it is nice. But here we're looking at, once again, the interface for Luminar 4. And like I said, if you click on this, the looks disappear. If you click on it, then you have the looks, the toolbar with the looks on it appear. If you go down here, here's the different looks. You look over here, you can see the different catalogs that are available. You have the essentials looks, and you have all these down here. But if we're doing the landscape, we might as well look at the landscape. But let's look and see what else is there. There are street photography, portrait photography, lifestyle, dramatic, aerial, stunning portraits, dramatic. There are a lot more, and there are favorites, and there are users. If you can decide that if you work one of these things out and you like it, you can save it as your own personal look, and you'll come out there and here you can see some looks that I saved. Well, let's go. Or if you want to get more, you just click get more, and you click onto their website, and then you can see different looks. You have skies and all kind of looks, and here you can see all the different looks you can get. And some are free and some will cost you a couple bucks. I generally don't use that many looks, so I don't usually end up buying a lot of looks. Now I have to go back to make sure I can get back there. Let's get rid of that. Okay, now we're back there. I just want to get down to the landscape. So here we have that photograph I have taken. I just drug it in, dropped it on the icon, and now I have these different choices. And the other interesting thing is if I take my pointer and put it on top, you can see I immediately get a preview. Now that's what the before, this is the after. And as I move it, slide my pointer down, I immediately get a preview of that particular look. And this is starting to look pretty good right now. That's looking better than the first one. Then you got this one that has deep sky, and you keep going down there, they're gonna keep going through. And you can see how fast those previews are, which is absolutely amazing in itself. Then you come down to this one and you say, that's it. Boy, that's it. Now we started off with a good photograph, a nice photograph, and now we have one that's, wow, where did you take that? In fact, that's where I'll show this to people and say, wow, that's amazing. Where did you take that? And so you went from a good photograph to an amazing photograph. Now you might say, that's a little bit over the top. And I would say, you're right. But we'll click on this and I'll show you another trick. You click on here and you can see right here is a strength bar or a fade bar. You slide this down and you can add as much strength as you want. This is the original. We can add 50% right there, which is starting to look pretty good. I would go with 75. So that's it. Now what you do with it, you have to go up here to the top of the toolbars up here. And you see this icon up here that has a square with an arrow on it. That's when you have to do something with this photograph. So you have to download it somewhere. You can export the image to the mail. You can to your mail or somebody else's mail. You can export it as a message. I don't know who Smug Mug or I have these things, or 500 PX. I don't know who that is. But you can open it up in another program. This happens to be a Mac I'm working on, and the Mac photo program is called Photos. I'm going to send it over there. And here now it's exporting this photograph. And okay, let's see, it's going to right here. There it is. This is this photograph. It is now in Photos on my Mac machine. So I have a copy of it. And like I said, you didn't have to have Lightroom. You didn't have to have Photoshop. You got a real, if you're one of those people that says, well, I don't like to do a lot of post-processing. I don't want to be spending all my time trying to, work in Photoshop or Lightroom. Here you are, you drop the photo on the icon, you made a couple clicks, and right here you are. It doesn't get any faster than that or any easier than that. In fact, it's getting too easy. Some people are complaining that this they're used to slaving in Photoshop, and now people who don't want to slave can get a fairly good image without having to do all the toil that they've been going through. But this is the fact of life, and this is AI. This is what you can do with AI without a lot of struggle. Okay, so we're going to get rid of that. I'm going to just, let me just get rid of this. We're back to Luminar, and I'm just going to shut Luminar down. That's not the way I usually work with Luminar. I usually work with Lightroom. I have it as a plugin for Lightroom. And here are a bunch of images. Once again, it's I'm doing some autumn foliage pictures. And this is the original photograph I took. And this was a nice, it was at the end of a storm, and there's some beautiful foliage out here. So when I took the original photograph, and let me see, I got to get rid of this. How did I get rid of you over here, Vince?
What do you want to get rid of, Frank?
Oh, over here I have a bar with all the people who are attending.
You can just push that away or click it.
Where
There's
do I go?
there's a collapse symbol in the upper left of the participants.
That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that symbol. I don't see it.
Yeah, and you could so if you hit that little down arrow and then you hit close, and that will get rid of it for you.
Well, I don't see it, but I just moved it now.
Okay.
I just moved it. Okay. So now here I can look at the histogram. This is what I was trying to get at. And you can see that right here, I have a lot of highlights that, well, let's look at this one. This will be explained a little bit better. You can see I have a lot of highlights that are burned out. You know, you can see where the histogram is banging against the right. And then you can see the histogram on the left where I have a lot of blacks, you know, completely blacks. So this is what what I did here. I took 5 photographs, and then I choose to do an HDR. And so I was going to use this as my middle image, and I was going to use this one. We'll look at the histogram here. You can see that the histogram has moved away from the right. So now I'm starting to see some detail over here. And I was going to use this one to get details in the blacks. You can see now I have details in the dark side. You see the histogram has moved away. I was just going to take these 3 images and run them through, go up here and say, edit in or merge in HDR, but I'm not going to do that because I don't want to waste the time. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over here and I'm going to look at this image. This is the resulting image, all right? This is the HDR photograph, which is a raw image. This is DNG, that's Photoshop's version of raw. Now I have details in the dark sides. I have details. It's a nice image, but it's not your knock your eye out thing. You know, it can look a lot better. In fact, it's very realistic. In fact, it's too realistic. Actually, when I was there, the colors actually look better. But this is the best you can do by just doing an HDR and not playing around with it without optimizing the photograph. What we're going to do now, we're going to optimize the photograph. I'm going to take this image and I'll send it over to Luminar. I'm going to go up here and we're going to say edit in. And like I said, I have it as a plugin. And if you go over here, I can see I have edited in. I can send it to Photoshop or I can send it to Luminar. And actually, you can see Luminar be listed down here too. But as a plugin, it ends up on the top here. And even more interesting is the shortcuts. If I use Option Command E, it'll send it directly. I won't have to press up here. I can just go down here and hit my keyboard, and this shows up. All right, it wants me to edit the photograph with Luminar 4. And here it says, what do I want to edit? I says, well, I want to edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments. All right, I didn't do the Lightroom adjustments that I usually do. I can tell, let me just show you what I usually do. I'm going to back out of this just for a second. I'm going to go into the develop module of Lightroom, and there's a couple edits I do in Lightroom because they're fairly easy. One is I do the lens correction that's in Lightroom. And here I already have it checked off. But here what the native photograph that I got looked like. Now I'm going to do some edits. I'm going to do chromatic aberrations. I'm going to tell it to use a profile correction, profile for the lens. And it knows what lens I used. It's telling me what Canon lens I used. And you can see there was a difference. That's what the original photograph looked like. This is after it makes the corrections. So there were some corrections. If anything was uneven or it wasn't level, I could go down here and do the transform. I do the auto, and it's working out all right. Evidently, it was taken level. Then I usually go up to the basic, and there's one thing I usually do because it's very easily done in Lightroom. I want to set the white point and the black point. And the way to do it, you might say digitally or electronically, is you hold down the shift key and just click on the whites. You might have to double, and you can see it moved a little bit. If you double click on this, it's going to go back to 0. This is where it is usually. But once again, I'm going to hold down the shift key, double click here, and it set the white point. If you notice, this would have moved a little bit. And you can see, well, we're going to make an adjustment over on the left-hand side. I'm going to hold down the shift key and double click here. And you can see that moved a little bit. It really set the black point. The other thing I usually do, I look for a neutral gray somewhere in the photograph, and boy, there's a lot of gray right here. And I take this pointer and I'll bring it over here. I'm going to look for something that, where the numbers down below, they're 60 and they're all just about the same in 60. Here we go. Let's see. All right, that's 50. That's 80. See, it's too bright. I wanted to get it just a little bit. Right there. So it's 60, 61, and 64. That's close enough. Click it, and I made some color correction. So it was that's like using a grade card. So now that's what I would do. Those are the basic things I would do in Lightroom. Sometimes I would play with a lot of these sliders. But the other thing it's a lot easier sometimes to do in Lightroom is do the sharpening. And the sharpening was already done. It was set. So I'm all ready to go. I'm now going to send this over to Luminar. Here it's just edited with a copy of Lightroom adjustments. It's going to send the copy with the adjustments I just made. It's going to send it over. It's going to edit it. It's going to get. All right. It's going to open up in Luminar. Just give it a second. There we are. Now I'm in Luminar, and here's all my stuff. All right. Once again, here are the looks. Whenever I click on that, they're going to go away. I click on it again, and there they are. I just want to look at the looks again, just so I can bring your attention to something else. I'm going to take this warm sunset one right here. All right. Like I said, it's a little over the top, but one of the things I want to bring to your attention here is over here on the right hand side. You can see over here, there's a certain number of these tools that are highlighted. And what that means with this particular uh, look right here, these are the tools that it used. They used the tools in here in this particular, there we go. And oh, this is not working out like it should, but anyway. Usually one of these things will light up. Let me just go down here and use another one here. Now you can see two of these things lit up. Here's the essential ones. And when I click on the essentials, these are the tools it used. It used the AI enhance. And then when you look at the sliders, you can see how far they moved the slider down. It used AI structure. You can see how much of the structure they used. They used the landscape enhancer. And what it used in landscape enhancer was, what did it use? Must have used something here. Yeah, it used the foliage hue. So that's what it used. So if you're trying to struggle and learn how to use these tools, if you look down here at it looks and use them as an example, you'll be able to go over here and learn which tools were used in each one of these looks. And that way you'll start getting a little bit more familiar with the tools. So that's how you can do that by using the looks. I prefer not to use the looks, so I'm just going to get rid of them altogether. Let me do one more thing here. I have to go down here. I'm going to reset everything. Here you can see down here is something that says reset adjustments. So I reset the adjustments there. I'm going to make this smaller so I don't have to keep fighting with this bar here. Okay. So I don't have to do with this bar down here. I'm gonna get rid of it altogether so it makes the image larger. And then I'm gonna go over and use the tools on my own. I'm just gonna, optimize the photograph with these tools. And when you look over here, I said, once again, here's the library thing up here. We're not gonna deal with that. Here's the edit section. Here's the info section. If I click on that, you can see it gives me some information of what camera it was taken with and what date. And here's something that this was taken on the 2015. It was October the 13th. If you want to go up and get the time to do some autumn foliage photography in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, the second week of October is when it's usually at its peak. So you can learn that. And you can see what the exposures was. I'm going to go back here to the edit thing again, and usually work your way down. Here's the layers. We'll talk about layers in a little while. Here is, it's called the canvas tools. There's erase and clone stamping, the lens geometry, which you can do here, but it's a lot simpler to do in Lightroom. And here's crop and rotation if you want to crop and rotate your image. Let's get rid of the erase, because what this thing is up here, I can never figure out what that was. But we're going to erase it. It's gonna show me a circle right here. I'm gonna make it a little bit larger by playing with the bracket keys. And then I'm just gonna get rid of that. And I'm gonna go here and say done. And It's done. It erased. That does a great job of, get rid of any spots or any dust spots or anything like that, or anything you want to get rid of. If I want to get rid of that branch because it's ruining my photograph, I can get rid of that with the same thing. Well, let's go down to here. And here we have the essentials tube. That's why it's on the top. Next to it, and here's all the essential tools. All these tools are grouped with like tools. And the next one down is creative. There's the sky replacement, augment sky, sun rays. These are all what they artistic AI tools, you might say. Next down is portrait. Of course, we're not going to, this is not a portrait. And the last one is pro. And then you got some advanced contrast, adjustable gradient. These are all interesting tools. Well, let's go back to the top because that's where we want to stop. Start, stop. All right, here we go. On the top, once again, is light. And we go up here. These are the familiar things, the temperature, the tint, the exposure. This is what we were looking at in Lightroom. And I usually make these time of adjustments in Lightroom, except there's one here that's not found in Lightroom. This is smart contrast, and you can slide this around. You can see that's going to change the contrast. You see how it changed the image. Smart contrast is different than the ordinary contrast. Well, if you use ordinary contrast like in Lightroom, sometimes you get to the problem where you can blow out the highlights or make the shadows, completely black. Smart contrast won't do that. It's a better way of applying contrast. And that's why it's called smart contrast. The one tool that almost every image benefits from is AI Enhance. And this AI accent is the one that's the best. And in a landscape scene like this, I would usually run it all the way over to 100%. Now that's what we're starting looking at. This is the before and this is the after. Now we're starting to get to what the heck you wanted to do. And what does it do? This is AI Enhanced, balances the exposure, evens the exposure out, throughout the photograph. It plays with contrast and tone. And usually everybody recommends you try 100, look and see what it does. So don't be afraid to slide it all the way over because you may like it at 100%. And it quickly improved the photograph and not a heck of a lot of work, just one slider. Now, the next one down below, it's equally important. It's AI Sky Enhancer. I'm going to slide it all over, and there you can see, well, that's too much. Go back to where we were, now slide it over gently. Go over here, maybe somewhere around there. It makes the sky look a little better. This is the before, this is the after. And the before and after thing, I'm using my backslash key on my keyboard by pressing it, and that's how I get the before and that's the after. It's the same as going up here and right here. Now that thing got my way. I don't know. But anyway, up in the top toolbar, there's right here's the split screen. So you can see the before and after. You can see we come quite a ways, but we can go quite a ways more. Now the next thing is color. This is a fall photograph, and it can benefit from some little hyping of the color. And we're going to go to the advanced settings where it allows me to do individual colors. Here's the reds, and I'm just going to increase the saturation of the reds. You can put it all the way up there. You can see the reds down here. Well, they're really at your knock your eye out. We don't want it that much. Well, let's put it down here. So it makes the reds look a little better. In fall foliage, the oranges are important. We're going to increase the saturation of the oranges. You can see how good what the oranges look like there. We're going to do the same thing with the yellows. increase the saturation. We got them coming up. The greens are not going to do much. The blues, I'll tell you what, I just don't like that hue of the blues. We're gonna make it just a little bit that shade of blue, and then it's just a little bit too prominent. I'm going to cut back on the saturation of the blues, so that makes it look more like a natural sky to me anyway. And here's the before, and there's the after. So now we have really came a ways. Black and white, not correct. Detail enhancers. This is I really like this. I really like this tool. And here's the small details. I'm gonna run it all. If you run it all the way over there, you can see it makes those leaves really pop out. I don't want them to pop out that much, but I want them to pop out a lot. So I'm gonna put it here at 50. And the medium details, we're gonna move that, but not quite as much. Same thing here with the large details. Now we're gonna look before and after. You can see how the rocks and the trees look like. We're just gonna sharpen it a little bit, and you can see how everything's starting to look almost three-dimensional. All right, there's not much noise here, but we don't. The landscape enhancer, well, the one thing that really works well is the golden hour. This is a warm scene. We're even going to warm it up more. But if you use the golden hour, what that does is just warms it up a little bit. Before and after. Now you say it's a little over the top, but we'll take care of that. Vignetting, we're not going to use. We don't have to use any of these tools. We'll go down here and use the Pro thing. The one thing I just want to point out to you is the advanced contrast. Sometimes that works. No, all right, it's too much. Oh, and the midtones, no. The shadows, if you open the shadows, it actually opens up the shadows over here. You can see a little bit more the shadows in here. That may help a little bit. The adjustable gradient is interesting because here you can do the adjustment. You can do the top or the bottom separately. Here you can say, you know, the sky is just too much. The exposure is too much. You can decrease the exposure in only the sky. See that? Only in the top portion of the photograph. You can play around with the contrast, the shadows, the highlights. You can say the warmth, well, let's make the sky a little bit cooler. So now the sky on the top is cooler and we cut it back a little bit. We can go on the bottom and say, well, that's warm. Let's warm it up a little bit. We'll make the bottom of the photograph a lot warmer. Huh? At the top, we made it cool. Bottom, we could play with the vibrance on just the bottom. So I'm just trying to show you how these tools will work. Color enhancer, we're not going to photo. We're not going to work on any of these. I think we're done. I think we've done enough. We ruined it enough. You might say, oh, that is really knock your eye out. That's really gaudy. That's almost surreal. Well, we can take care of that. All right, now what we're going to do, we're going to go up here to the top and we're going to look at the layers. So we put this on a layer now. This photograph is now on the layer. And here you can see the adjustment amount. This is that strength or fader slider again. We take it over here, slide it all the way down, it's back down to 0. So that thing that you said was over the top, we can correct it to wherever we want. We can do it at 50%. This is the before, that's the after. Or maybe, yeah, that's all right, but I like it just to be a little bit more. We're up at 75. Now that's a lot better than what we were doing before. Good. Now that's, I think maybe we're done with this now. Well, let me show you another thing about the layers. Like I said, this thing has layers. Lightroom is a great program, but doesn't have layers. I used to have to always move into Photoshop to use layers. I do whatever I could in Lightroom and do all the global changes in Lightroom. And then if I wanted to do changes to specific areas or remove specific objects or something like that, or use layers, I had to go to Photoshop. Now, this program has layers. We're going to go up here, we hit the plus, tell it, add a new adjustment layer. There we go. So now I have a new adjustment layer. And we go over here, I think, yeah, layer number 1. And if I click over here, there's different things I can do. I'm going to rename it. What I'm going to rename is this thing is black and white. So this layer is going to be black and white. How am I going to do the black and white? Well, I'm going to go down here to the looks thing and pick this light back and light photograph out here. Click it. There it is in black and white. So that's the image I was just working on with all those changes. And all these changes I made are going to have a change in the black and white photograph. You can see how much more intense the sky is. And just to see what it looked like. And so here we are in the black and white thing now. If I go up here, it's black and white. If I don't like the black and white, here's the checkbox and get rid of it. We're back to where before. Click on it again, the black and white's back. All right, we played around. I don't like this. Go over here, delete layer, and the layer is gone. The advantage of layers, you can come up, play around, use different tools. If you don't like them, you can just throw the layer away. And the things, the rest of the image is not influenced. There's non-destructive workflow here anyway. Everything you're doing is non-destructive. You can go down here, you can see this clock right here. And you can, here's a history of all the changes I made. See, it says the black and white was deleted. I enabled it here, disabled it here. They can see all this stuff, all right? This is all the changes. So you can go back and make adjustments here by using the history thing. Down here is revert to the original. Well, once again, it'll just turn everything back to the original. And this is hide the histogram. I happen to like the histogram, so we're not going to deal with that. I get rid of everything. So now we're back to the tools. Now I have this image, which, all right, I already used the one layer to adjust the, I adjust the amount, the strength of that. So we worked on the amount of, or the strength of the image we were working on. And I says, well, I like this. And what we can do, you go over here, you can save as a new look. You click over here, and you want to put a name there. I just put my, you can put the date in or my initials, and then you can put whatever it is. You might say autumn foliage or whatever you want. You hit save, and it's going to appear down here in the looks. And what does it say? Uses precepts, and there it is. Here it is. Here's what we just did. FCP autumn. Okay. So that's it. That's how, like I said, you can do the same thing in Photoshop. You can do the same thing in Lightroom, but it's not going to be this fast. It's not going to be this easy. How much time we have? All right, we got good time. All right, so that's these particular things. Let me just cancel all this. I'm back here with Lightroom Classic again, and I'm trying to get to, I'm gonna have to get into the library here. We're back in the library. I'm gonna go to Portraits Luminar. And here we're gonna look at some portraits. And this is a photograph of the Cookie Monster. This is my granddaughter when she had an episode with an Oreo cookie, and I thought it was kind of cute. The remains of the cookie were interesting, and so I took her over to the window and I took her photograph. But this, like I said, I'm not a portrait photographer, but I can do some things anyway. What we're going to do with this, we're going to send this to Luminar, And you're going to find that, now let me get this thing set up here right. For some reason, there it goes. First time I tried to send it, just beeped, told me I did something wrong. Here we go. Vince, is there anything going on all right?
Yes, Frank, it's going on very well. I've answered a couple questions, but you might have some input as well. The first one was, does this program replace Lightroom or Photoshop?
Well, it's a standalone program. It doesn't truly replace it, but if you're interested in a program where you can use the library and then have a good, something you can work on your images, this is one of the programs. I don't think it completely replaces, but it comes darn near. If you're just interested in doing some simple post processing, it may work for you. If it works for me as a plugin, just because I'm used to using Lightroom, I'm used to using Photoshop, and I would miss those programs. But this thing comes pretty darn near to replacing it.
I think I would agree with that as well, Frank, and most people I've listened to on webinars, I think feel pretty much the same. There's just some major things with Lightroom and Photoshop. I use this as a plugin. Many of my images, I end up going over here to do a couple of the features. I think the erase tool or the clone and erase tool are often, to me, easier and better than in Lightroom. There's a question about the cost. A yearly subscription versus a purchase outright, and I answered it's about $70, as I recall, for an outright purchase. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's now the new program. I don't know what they're talking about. I think you can still purchase it, but they were talking. They're starting to talk about something about a yearly subscription. I don't know.
Yeah, the brand new AI is the pre-release is about $60.
Yeah,
they do charge you when they upgrade each year. So you're not buying a subscription, but if you want to keep up to date with their changes, I have not found Skylum to give their changes for free. Jenny says that they've been offering this free to some schools, so I don't know about that. But Jenny,
yeah, I actually contacted them directly. You have to prove that you're a school, and I was in email contact with them, and they gave me enough license numbers for me to put it onto the 10 laptops that I use for photography students at my school. And they said during COVID, if I had students that wanted to put it on their home computer, they could have access to it for a year. So they gave me licenses for that too, and for the teacher.
Nice. Jeff indicates that it's since he has his photos in his Lightroom catalog, he did not want to lose that option. And I think the Lightroom has the most sophisticated catalog, I think, probably out there that most professionals are using. And it would be hard to give up Lightroom's catalog for the Luminar catalog. You could do, as Frank was showing, go from however you store your photos and bring them in and not have a fancy catalog. That certainly is an option. Frank, to put your image back in Photoshop, all the layers that you've made, your masking, etc., they're no longer accessible once you've compressed the image and exported it back out. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. Especially as now, that's because I compressed it. I hit apply and then I compressed the image.
Right. Back as a TIFF.
There may be some ways of saving it that
no, there's not.
Well, there probably isn't. I thought somewhere I read it where there was, there was a format you can save it in that you can go back into Luminar. But I never do that. I just go back and just save it. And I actually, what I do, I should have showed you, is I send it back to Lightroom. It goes back to the Lightroom, goes right back into the Lightroom catalog as a, well, maybe it did. I don't know.
It should go back if you have it set up properly to
Yes.
sit next to your
Right,
original image, and it will be a TIFF file.
right. And so that's it. In fact, I can check on that. Let me see if it
While you're
was-
doing that, there's a question is, if you're a current user, do you have to buy the new Luminar AI? Yes, you do. As I indicated, the pre-release, it's being released somewhere between now and January, is in the ballpark of $69 or so.
Right. Okay.
Frank, there's a question about sky replacement in the library.
Yeah.
Can you address that?
Well, let's just look at this. Here's a photograph I took some years ago, and it was a beautiful day in the mountains. It doesn't get any better than this, I'll tell you that. And it's a good photograph, but it could be better. And while I was out there, I said to myself, boy, today's such a beautiful day, but God, I wish there were a couple of clouds in the sky. I normally don't play around applying clouds or adding clouds or whatever, but just out of curiosity, I did that here. So I added the clouds. Now, in Luminar 4, it's fairly easy using AI to add the clouds. You know, you have the clouds over here, right here, and you just add them and they just come in right here. All right. Well, this image, this is the image I used for that. Okay. And so it's fairly easy. But then the thing of it is, if you're going to keep, I just did it out of curiosity to see what it looks like. If you wanted to keep the image, you have to have the clouds reflected down here. Now in Luminar 4, you can do that. What you can do is you open up a new layer and you add a new image layer, and you're making another copy of the clouds. Now, once you have the layer, the new layer with the new cloud layer, you invert the cloud layer. And that's, you can tell in layers, there's a thing where you can say invert it, and we'll invert the image so the clouds now turn upside down here. And then you take mask so that the only place those clouds appear are in the water here, and you use a mask to do that. Then the other thing you have to do, you have to sort of fade the clouds a little bit so they look a little bit more realistic. Because you just had a direct image of those clouds like that right here in the water. You can see that this image is a little blurry as compared to that. So you have to make clouds a little bit. And it works, but it's a lot of work. In the new AI, they use AI to not only put the clouds in, but to use AI to put a reflection of the clouds in the water. So I didn't even try to put the reflection in the water. The other thing that's very, very interesting, this sky replacement thing is becoming something interesting. The other optimizing programs or photo editing programs are playing around with sky replacement. In fact, the new version of Photoshop, the most recently released, is supposed to have the best cloud replacement thing in the market. Now Photoshop is moving pretty strongly into the AI area by introducing that cloud replacement tool. People have used both claim that the Photoshop replacement tool is much, much better than Luminar, but they haven't compared it to Luminar AI. So that's all I can say about cloud replacement. I hope, does that answer the question? Vince, I can't hear you.
Sorry, your clouds look like they're on top of the mountain peaks. Can you control that in Luminar?
Yeah, well, actually, you can see you can control that. You can control this one. It appears like right here.
Yeah,
It's sort of
can you watch that
surround-
away?
It's sort of surrounding the peak. Well, the interesting thing about the way Luminar identifies the edges, it's it does such a good job, like a tree pointing up into the sky and the branches. It does such a good job as identifying the sky through the trees. And here, for some reason, it didn't. But you can play around. They have sliders that you can play around with, where the edge of the clouds meets the edge of the mountains. So you can do a better job. This was just me doing a real quick job. Here you can see it. It's a lot better here, I think. Yeah, you can see it over there. It's a lot better.
I've seen demos of the new sky replacement in Photoshop, and it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, they are incredible. It's unbelievable. I mean, you know, I just like this, I mean, this artificial intelligence thing is just unbelievable how far it has come. I can mean back in the old days where, you know, they had like I said before, you know, and they have now in Lightroom, they have that auto button. You used to be able to get free optimizing programs on the internet, and some were pretty good. And that was the time when Photoshop would cost you $600 to buy, and same thing with Lightroom. That was before you had subscriptions. So a lot of people were utilizing these free programs. And I forget the name of the one, but the name of one had an auto button, and what they called it, feeling lucky. That's how bad the AI was not too recently. I mean, that was just a couple of years ago. Today, it's unbelievable, the artificial intelligence.
Frank, it was asked if you could actually do a sky replacement in Luminar, so it
Can
could
I
be
do
seen
it?
how to do it.
Well, I'd rather not spend the time. I want to do some other things.
Okay,
And then if we have time, I'll try to do the sky replacement. All right?
okay. You mentioned your masking with Luminar. Can you erase part of the mask to see what's under it and then put it back again? The eyeball, turn the mask on and off?
You can do that. You could sort of reverse things back and forth. But what you usually do, you just the way it's set up, the way I have used it was you put the image there and then you use the eraser to erase the image on top so the image down below shows through. You understand what I mean?
Right, but you can turn the mask on and off to see what's
Yeah,
underneath
yeah,
it as well.
yeah.
I think that was the question.
Yeah, I think so. I don't play around with masks. That I let the computer pick out the easy mask, and then like I said, I don't play around with it that much.
All right, we'll come back to the sky replacement
All
after you
right.
do some
Well, let
other
me
things.
do that because these other tools are even more fascinating. Let me go down here to portrait, and I'm trying to get this thing. I got myself screwed up. I got my. Now I lost my place here. Here we go. This is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this, and I want to go back to somehow this thing shut down. I want to go back here. I'm trying to get back. Here it comes. So we're back with the Cookie Monster, and we're in Luminar. What the things that really impress me about Luminar are these portrait tools. I'm over here looking at the tools. I'm going to go over here to the portrait tools. I'm just going to click on that. All right, here we are. Here's the skin enhancer. I don't have to do anything to the skin, but I want to do something with the artificial intelligent portrait enhancer. Face light is absolutely amazing. I'm just going to turn this on, and I'll go all the way over. The program knows where the face is, and it knows where to put the light. Now, I can adjust it as much as I want. I'm just going to leave it all the way over just for a second. So here you can see the difference. You can see what difference that makes. And then there's no red eye removal, but I'm going to use the eye whitening. I'm just going to shove it all the way over. That's a little bit too much, even so. I'm just going to cut it back like right to there. Eye enhancer. And that you can see what that eye enhancer has done to her, the irises here. The new version is even better than this. And I was absolutely amazed with this. But the new AI version is supposed to be, if there's any dark circles, this would remove it if there's any. And then this is, I'm just going to demonstrate these things. This will slim the face. All right, that's the normal face. This would enlarge the eyes. Improve the eyebrows. I'm going to move that all the way over because it makes the eyebrows. The lip saturation, I'm just going to put it all the way over. The redness, darkness. There's no teeth whitening. But this is the before and that's the after. I took a mediocre photograph, well, actually it was a pretty good photograph, and told it into a wow photograph. Look at that and look at this. All right. Now, like I said, what I would do, I would hit apply and it's going to send it. I should have done that with the landscape photograph. And it will send it back to Lightroom. And here it is. So here it is, the Luminar photograph. And here's the original photograph. Let me see if okay, there we go. And I'm just going to show you the comparison side by side. That's the original and that's the Luminar. Now, let me tell you this, the gurus are ranting and raving that the portrait editor in Luminar AI is much, much better than this. But this is absolutely amazing. I'm going to show you another one of the, all right, now let me get rid of this. I'm going to send this one over to Luminar. All right, here we are. This photograph is now in Luminar. We're going to do some, like I said, just about any photograph does well with doing some AI enhance. And what it does here is her hair. You can see her hair really improve her hair and improves her face somewhat. Then AI structure. I should have used the AI structure in a landscape. I don't think I used it enough. It just makes things stand out and things look more 3D, but we don't need it here. So we're going to go right over to here. And the skin enhancer, she has the typical teenage skin there. She's a beautiful girl, but she, you know how all these kids have. She has a little shine, that won't remove. We're going to do the skin up here. And the other thing is the skin defects removal. We're going to hit that. And those things just about disappeared now compared to what they were before. There they were before. No, wait a minute. Let me get this thing. That's the way they were before. You could see them in there. Now they're just about seen. Now the most important thing, like I said, the thing that is the portrait enhancer. We want to do the face light. Face light is done pretty good here. And then we're going to do no red eye, but we're going to do the eye whitening. I'm just going to exaggerate it a little bit. And the eye enhancer, which will make her her irises stand out. Dark circles, that doesn't do much. I'm not going to play around with these things in the eye, but we'll improve the eyebrows, but right about there. And there's no lips there. But anyway, that's before. This is the Cookie Monster when she's, 16 years old. The other one was when she was like 3 or 4. All right, so this is the Cookie Monster. Now, the other amazing thing about, all right, we'll apply this one too. We'll send this one back. because then I want to get back to Lightroom. Well, it's going to get back to it eventually, I hope. Oh, here it is. It's over here now. Once again, I'm dealing with this bar here. Here's the after, there's the before. We'll look at them here together. You can see the difference. Few sliders and few clicks, and this is what it does. Absolutely amazing. Like it says, it's easier and it's faster. You can do the same thing in Photoshop and do just about the same thing in Lightroom, but it's not this easy and it's not going to be that fast. One more I want to show you too that really will. All right, now I have to get rid of this. Here we go. Here's another photograph. All right. I'm going to send this over to Luminar. So I would make Lightroom adjustments, but I'm not. I'm just going to send it over because I just want to show you how that portrait editor works. When it gets, here it is. Now there we are. Okay, here we are. And we're going to go right here to the portraits. We're not going to deal with skin enhancer. We're going to go to portrait. And the amazing thing here is the face light. Not only one face, but it recognized every face that was there. Now it's over the top. I'll have to cut it back to about, oh, maybe about here or something like that. And there's the before, there's the after. And then you can go through the rest of the stuff. You can go through the eye whitening and the eye enhancer, the dark circles remover. We're not going to go through with any of these, but improve the eyebrows. And we're going to do the lip saturations, the redness, and maybe the darkening, and the teeth whitening. You can see the teeth whitening. These are my grandchildren, by the way, and of course their parents. But here we are. This is what it looked like before and after. And here's the Cookie Monster. Look at those eyes. Look at the pupil in these eyes. Absolutely unbelievable. No, I gotta come in. Okay. So that, and this was a very sharp image. You can see this was taken with a high megapixel camera. So you can see you can really, really move in and you can really move in pretty far. Hit the screen. All right. So those are the portrait tools in Luminar 4. I was amazed with them. I thought they were absolutely unbelievable. And they really are unbelievable. But what's even more unbelievable is that the portrait tools that I have seen in demos, it's even better than this. Now let me show you something else here. Let me get back. I have to get back to Lightroom Classic. Where is this? All right, yeah, I'm here. This is Luminar. I want to get back to, let me get out of Luminar. All right, we're back to Lightroom Classic. I want to go to here. Now I do a lot of animal photography and stuff like that, wildlife photography and birds. And you can always optimize these photographs. This is, once again, this is a good photograph of a ram. This is taken at, over 12,000 feet in the Rocky Mountains, Rocky Mountain National Park along the Ridge Drive. And great photograph taken with a real long lens. And you can always make things stand out much better if you, now the portrait things, the cameras will actually they're at the point where they'll focus on an animal's eye. You're not going to get the same thing with Luminar when you work on a photograph. But what you can do, this is a backlit photograph, and you can do a heck of a lot better by just doing some enhancements here. You can see how much that improved the photograph. And then you can, once again, we'll use the AI structure here. You can see how that makes things stand out a little bit. The hairs are, all the hair on the animal's back. And color, we're not going to play. Well, maybe we'll come back to it. Detail enhancer. I like the detail enhancers I told you before. Move it up. So this is what we had before. This is what we're having now. You can see how the eye pops up with just those few things. And then the rest of it, we're just going to play about. So even with the animals, things will work out fairly well. Here's a turkey. You can do the same thing with the turkey. Send it over. Here we are, just using this one slider. You can see how much better that makes it. And we'll use another slider like AI structure. And you can look at the eye of this animal here. Well, I guess I'll have to. You can see how prominent its eye is. I can even fix that up more. But anyway, that's at 200%. Okay. And you might say detail enhancer. These detail enhancer things, it really does a great job on the feathers. Look at the detail in the feathers right here. And this is before and that's after. The tail, look at the tail. And look at the feathers over here. The breast feathers. You can see how much you can improve. Now this is a good photograph, and this is a wow photograph. That's what I mean. Awesome. All right, I think we're probably looking, let me get back to Lightroom. All right, processing that's gonna go back. I think I went through everything. Now we have a couple minutes left. I'll try to do, I'm back in Lightroom Classic. No, I'll be the son of a gun. I just, in my stumbling and fumbling around, I just happened to close Lightroom. In a second or two, we'll be back to where we want to be. I think. I thought we're going back to where we want to, but we didn't.
You opened the right catalog, Frank.
No, I'm in the wrong catalog. I had a problem with those catalogs. They wanted me to upgrade them, and then when it upgraded them, it screwed it up. Put the catalogs. I wanted to get into this catalog right here. I think that's the correct catalog.
It should remember which catalog you were in when you reopened, no?
Well, it should, but it didn't.
Yeah. When I upgraded and got the new catalog, it went perfectly fine. Frank, while you're on that screen right there, If you look down in the black line above the number 4 on the film strip, it says Luminar TIFF. So that's
Yeah,
where the file came back in.
right.
It's to Luminar twice, and it came back as a TIFF file,
Yeah,
TIF,
yeah,
just to
that's
show
good.
people.
Right.
Someone
Now I
asked
was
about
down here looking for, let me see. No. This is what I'm looking for. No, I was not looking for that. This is the thing I was looking for. I'm looking for this. And there's the clouds, and here's the thing. So I'm going to send that over to Luminar, and you have to forgive me if I'm going to stumble and fumble with this thing because I haven't done this. I just did it out of curiosity to see what the clouds look like. And I was going to wait until the new version came out before I was going to spend a lot of time on it. But anyway, here we are. We're up here and we want to get into this bunch of tools right here. And here it says sky replacement. And then it has sky. And let me see if I can load custom skies. Well, let me see. I should. No, it doesn't show me anything.
There you go.
Yeah, but there's nothing in that catalog. I have to go down. Now, the thing is, I have to find that folder. Let me just use one of their skies just to put it in there so you get an idea. See, if I use one of those, this is a panorama. If I use one of their skies, it's not going to be a dramatic sky. Let me just look at one of these. So you can see how it replaced the sky already. See that? Now let me just look at it. Let me just see which one of these. See that? So it replaced it already. And then you can go down here where it says advanced settings, and then you can close these things. All these sliders do something different. They can defocus the sky. You can see how it's defocusing it. If it's, it's too much of focus. You can hear it says flip the sky. You can see that. So, you can add atmospheric haze. You can change the temperature or the color of the sky. You can make it warm or cool. So these are all the things, sky exposure. These are all the crazy things you can do. You can actually move it around the horizontal position. You can see that. I can leave it. The blending. This is where it's blending the image with the mountains there. You can relight the scene. Relight the scene, what you're supposed to do is try to get that sky to match this down here. Like I said, the new version is not only going to do this, but then you'll be able to press another slider and it'll take this sky, flip it, and put a reflection down here. That's the new version. That's what the new version in Photoshop is supposed to be able to do too. But that's, like I said, I don't play with sky replacement that much. I did that one out of curiosity, and I stumbled and fumbled through that. And like I said, unfortunately, I thought it'd be too much of grief for me to get back and find out there's a dramatic sunset, to get back there and try to get those skies. That the advantage of those skies, they're panoramic skies, and none of these things are. So the clouds just don't look right because they're too big. Well, here they're kind of small, so they look a little bit better. Okay, are there any other questions? I think that's just about everything I wanted to go. I wanted to, put a lot of emphasis so I can show you the portraits and the and the landscapes, and then some of the things with the animals and the birds. And you can see how this program makes things simpler, easier, and a lot faster. And you can do the same thing in Photoshop, and you can use Photoshop and Lightroom and get just about the same result, but it's not going to be as fast as this.
Frank,
Any
on
more
this
questions?
image, Maya says that she sees a reflection in the water. Was that reflection there, or is that your new sky?
No, this is the reflection that was there before.
On the left, yeah, on that side where you are, there's some whiteness there. Yeah,
That reflection was there before, I think.
Okay.
That's what was back here in the original. I think maybe it was, I don't know where that came from.
in reference to sky replacement, I think one of the key thing, there are two real key things, is one, the lighting needs to match your photo.
Right,
So if you have the sun coming in from the left side, and the right side of your sky has the sun obvious, then that's not going to match.
right,
So, and the type of the sky you have has to be appropriate. A bright sunny scene with a dark cloud sky doesn't work.
right.
But the other part is watching the focus point. If your scene has the midfield out of focus because that's your depth of field, and then you throw in a sharp sky, that's going to obviously be a replacement. Just as a reminder if we continue having competitions, sky replacements are okay in pictorial as long as it's the author's own sky, not a stock sky from Skylum or anywhere else.
Well, these are actually my own skies,
Yeah, you had said that.
but and they sort of match the scene. But like I said, this was just an experiment just to see what it would look like. And actually, to come back and tell you the truth, I like the original. The more I did it, the more I says, well, the original looks pretty good because it's sorry. And actually, the one thing I had to do with this original is go back and then play around with the color and make these colors stand out a little bit more. It's a little bit more than playing around with saturation. Like I said, it's playing around with the individual colors. But,
If everyone wants to unmute, if you have any questions for Frank that I didn't present through the chat room, feel free to do so. There are a lot of very good comments, Frank, as far as enjoying your presentation and thanking you. So thanks for doing that.
well, you're welcome.
Any more questions for Frank? I guess not, Frank.
Okay. I hope everybody got to appreciate this AI issue, and it certainly has changed things.
Frank, would you purchase Luminar 4 right now, knowing that the AI is about to be released?
No, probably not. But
Yeah.
I really like Luminar 4. But right now, since AI is going to be released, they said the holidays. Now, last time Luminar 4 came out, it was the same thing. It was released in the holidays, and I got it like the first week. Since I signed up, early, and got the discount, they usually send out the release a week earlier than they do the standard release. So I think I got it on the first week of December. I would wait a month before I spend the extra money.
If you're going to get it, you can, I don't know if their pre-release discount is still available or not.
I think it still is. And the other thing that's interesting, they're talking about AI. You can use Luminar AI and still do your own thing with the tools. You don't have to use the AI tools. The tools are still there, so you can manipulate them and you can do your own thing. You don't have to use well, you're going to use some of the AI tools like the AI structure and stuff like that. But You just, well, the new thing in the AI, they have, the AI is going to make suggestions to you. When you load an image, it's going to look at it and see what the image is, and then it's going to make suggestions as to what to do with the image. It'll give you sort of a preset or a preview that you look at. You can say, well, I like that. Or if you don't like it, then you can go on and do your own thing. Or you can like that, start using it and then make changes to it. So it's going to be, well, it just has a lot more AI in, but essentially you're going to be doing the same thing, except probably faster and better.
In addition to sky replacement, the new program will have snow, rain, fog, a whole bunch of environmental things that you could play with.
It also has a 3D effect with the fog. The
Yeah.
problem you had, like a lot of these programs have fog. You add the fog and the fog covers the entire photograph. The new AI thing is you add fog and then you tell them where you want the fog.
Right.
Just like in that, Mother Nature, the fog may, be, a half a mile down the stream or something like that. Well, you can just place that fog wherever you want, and then you can increase the intensity and gradually work it towards you. So that's amazing. That to me is amazing.
I have a question for you, Frank. I've been playing with Luminar since we were able to get it for school, and I felt like the cloning was frustrating. Like in Photoshop, when you clone something and you make a mistake, you can undo, but there's not really an undo that we could find in the cloning.
I'll tell you how you do the undo. Before you do the cloning, you do it on a layer. Do it on a new layer.
Mhm.
Then you do the cloning. If you don't like it, you just throw it away.
Okay.
That's the way I had the same problem until I finally realized, you can do it on a layer. Take a new layer, do whatever you want. If you don't like it, so you can just throw it away. Or the other thing is you can go into the history and get rid of it there.
Mm-hmm.
Jenny,
Okay.
I can show you that if you want to see that real quickly.
Yeah.
Let me just share my screen since I have it up. And then I'll show you that. So this image was in Lightroom, and when you started your questioning, I moved it over to Luminar. And up here is the tools. So erase. The circle I have set at size 20. You can make it bigger. I almost always will put it at its smallest. So say I want to get rid of this bit here, and I do that and hit done. And then I don't like it after it is done. It's still processing. So I said, no, that didn't do a good job.
Is that like the healing brush in
No,
Photoshop?
that was erase.
I know, but would you compare that to the healing brush in Photoshop?
Yeah.
Okay.
But say, now I don't like that. So I'm going to go up to here and go back as many steps as I have done in this particular episode. Let me show you. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. Done. And then I'm going to keep on going. And I'm going to do a couple more. This one here, and then that, and done. And now I said, I really messed that up. I don't bother doing it in masking. I used to, but I don't do that anymore because it was just an extra step using it as a layer. So I think because of the Zoom going on, my computer is running a little slow. And I also missed the word done. So now when I go back, I can go back in the history and go back several steps, or I can go back multiple steps to the original by hitting this button here.
Mm-hmm.
So if I've done a whole bunch of things, I can keep going back in the history.
Okay.
The clone stamp is totally different. So it's asking me to set the source first. So
Right.
I'm going to set the source right there. This is now the clone tool. So it's going to take from where this black circle is and clone where from the black circle, right?
Right.
Generally
Now it's
speaking,
making a
I
mistake.
clone fairly small with a moderate sized brush, moderate size softness. And now if I don't like that, I can go back in the history and see how far back I want to go. Since I opened the clone, I can go back and now go back to the beginning of that.
Okay.
Hit done. And now if I want to go back to the beginning, I can do that here and go back to original.
Okay, got it.
So I'm going
Yes.
to just, if I hit apply here, it'll send it back to Lightroom as another file, and I don't want that. So I'm just going to hit cancel. And now I'll go back into my Lightroom from whence it came.
Okay.
So if you have a big catalog, I think I have 77,000 images in this catalog. There's no way that I'm going to transfer that into any other program. So even if I wanted to, I'd be kind of starting over again by going into the various programs that were suggested in the chat room. So, Frank, thank you so much.
Thanks,
you're
Frank.
welcome.
That was really enjoyable.
Good, thank you.
Excellent, Frank.
Yeah, thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Good night. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night,
All right.
Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Bye.
bye-bye.